This is Perspectivas Latinas, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. Casa Michoacán is a dynamic organization based in Pilsen with work and connections across the region and the continent. Today, our guests Francisco Martínez, the outreach coordinator, and José Luis Gutiérrez, the executive director, are here to talk about Casa Michoacán's work and the yearly celebration of Michoacanos in the Midwest. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much, Juan Carlos, for having us here.
Okay.
Thank you for the invitation, Carlos.
No problem. Well, let's start off by talking about you individually and what it is you do at Casa Michoacán. Francisco, please.
Well, I am the outreach coordinator, like you mentioned. I work a lot with the community, getting them involved with the different events, different workshops we're hosting, but not only in Chicago and Pilsen, but also in the suburbs. So,
What suburbs?
We're working with the west suburbs, southwest suburbs like Joliet. We have a new office in Joliet, but we're also working with Romeoville. We're working with Lockport. So we've been around the area.
Okay. How old are you, by the way? Because you're incredibly young to be doing something so big. At least it seems that way to me.
I am 20 years old.
20 years old. How long have you been a part of Casa Michoacán?
Well, I started volunteering since I was 14. It's in high school. I needed service hours. And then every year they asked me for service hours from the school, so I kept going to Casa Michoacán because I was down the street from my school. It was easier. And then after I graduated, they offered me a job to be volunteer and outreach coordinator at Casa Michoacán. So I've been working, since 2012.
2012. You've been paid.
Yes.
Not just volunteering. Wow, that's great. We'll definitely talk about how what your presence as a young person means there for other folks. José Luis, tell us about your work at Casa Michoacán and how long you've been around.
Well, I have been around for the last, I would say, 20 years in the community, working in different organizations, but working in Casa Michoacán and being the executive director since 2004.
2004.
As a executive director, Casa Michoacán we bought the building in 2004, and since then I have been the executive director, pro bono though. I have my job where I can get a check to pay the mortgage, but in Casa Michoacán is like you say, very dynamic organization based on volunteer work.
It's based on volunteer work primarily.
Yeah, and I'm executive director pro bono.
Pro bono. Wow. Do your friends and family think you're crazy for?
Yeah, it's always complicated to explain to everybody. Yeah, I'm the secretary of Casa Michoacán, but also, I'm working with NAILAC, that's a national organization.
Right.
I'm the associate director, and also it's the one that pays my bills. So
okay.
it's complicated.
So, you've been around Casa Michoacán, were you there for the birth of Casa Michoacán?
Yes.
As well? Yeah, let's talk about some of that history. You're located in Pilsen. Was that a strategic decision to place yourselves there?
Casa Michoacán is a project of the Michoacán Club Federation. And we decided to buy a building, to have a cultural center, to have an educational center, a place to meet. And let's say in the past we used to meet in the basement of churches and the cafeteria of Instituto del Progreso Latino. Those community organizations that help us to really get going, And in 2004 we decided to buy this building. It was an old church in Pilsen.
A storefront church, right?
Yeah. And we say, why Pilsen? Well, because it's the heart of the Mexican community, because it's close to downtown, it's close to UIC, and a lot of Michoacán friends and members or different clubs live around Pilsen. So we decided to buy the building, and since then we have been there working very hard to get people organized. That's our main focus. Primarily, in order to help our communities back home. How can we create more opportunities in Mexico? So to migrate is an option of life, not like the only way you can get better opportunities to your family. So, but now we're completely binational.
Binational, okay.
Because we work here, we get our clubs organized. We want them to be part of the school councils. We trying to get them involved in in civic participation, because we believe that migrants in the United States, here in the city of Chicago is a very good example. If you get organized and you take the leadership, you can change things around. And let's say Mexicans are the majority of Latinos here in the state of Illinois, and we believe that we need to have more people in making decisions positions, and that's one of the things that we push as a Casa Michoacán all year around.
Okay, it was born primarily with the concern of having an impact back in Michoacán in Mexico, of helping with development projects.
That's correct.
Right, so that people would see and have more opportunity. But you said since then you've kind of evolved and see yourselves as binational.
Yeah,
Right.
because we are a 501c3 not-for-profit in the United States, but also we work like a solidarity group to our communities, and we collaborate with the Mexican government and different development projects. I mean, let's say greenhouses, building schools,
Paving street.
scholarships,
Scholarships.
so people can go to school. I mean, and in this, we work with the government because we got a program. It's 3 by 1. I mean, we put $1. The federal government puts another dollar.
The Mexican federal government.
The Mexican federal government. The state, the governments of the state level, they put another dollar. The municipalities put another dollar. So we create like this amount of money to invest in different community projects that we decide we want to support.
And greenhouses, paving streets, schools you've built, and scholarships.
Scholarships.
Talk to me about the scholarships, because that's all over the world. Education is seen as the key to helping people get ahead and improve their future.
We are very focused in education. Back home, but also here in the States. Casa Michoacán is an educational center. We got a plaza comunitaria. I mean, we teach people that wants to learn how to write and read. We help them to get their elementary certificate, the secondary certificate in Mexico. I mean, they take the test and everything here in Casa Michoacán, and we provide them. And we work very close with the Mexican consulate and the educational authorities in Mexico.
And that's because these individuals may have started their education in Mexico,
Right.
and Spanish is their dominant language. So in order to help them get ahead, you provide this service, helping them finish, what is it, junior high and high school, or elementary?
Elementary, secondary, the high school, and actually we got some careers that they can buy online. They can attend school in Mexico.
Really?
So we got all these
Wow.
services, but in the same time we promote our identity as immigrants, in this case from the state of Michoacán, but it's not only for the state of Michoacán, it's for all Latinos, all immigrants of the world. And we want Casa Michoacán to be seen as a space that welcomes immigrants, a space where we promote our own identity, with the only purpose of look for creative ways to fully participate in the American society.
Okay, great. And talking about participation in American society, how do young people respond to the programs and the events that Casa Michoacán hosts? Because it's certainly very different for a young person to say, well, yeah, that's where my parents came from, unless you came from there yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, that 2 sections where some of them were born here, and some other young generation are actually, they were brought here too from Mexico, from their countries. So we do have, with the younger generation, maybe from preschool all the way to 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, sometimes even, there are more child activities. So we actually have, paint workshops. Oh, this is what you did. Your paint butterfly masks. Also,
Which you had for Day of the Child, right?
Yeah, correct.
Right.
We had a workshop with a Michoacano artist, Hector Duarte. He came in.
He's pretty well known here in Chicago.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
he's a really great
And
muralist.
it's part of our members.
And
in
he's
Casa
a
Michoacán.
active member, so he volunteered his time to go and teach the children, you know, a little bit about the Michoacan culture, about why the monarch butterfly is important to the Michoacanos as well, you know, people living here in Illinois, because it's a state insect of Michoacán and it's a state insect of Illinois at the same time,
Wow.
and 6 other states in the United States. So we make that connection, you know, with the butterflies that, you know, okay, kids, you know, this is your identity, because it's, you know, you're living here in Illinois, but you know, you're also from Michoacán, so they have to connect somehow with the butterflies. So with the mask, they, you know, they got to show their own colors, their own designs of, you know, who they are here living in United States.
And let me tell you.
That's for the little kids.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and we're very fortunate because we have many different young people participating in the organization because we realize, I mean, their priorities is not necessarily our priorities. I mean,
Right.
we, first generation migrants in the United States, we have our own priorities. Sometimes we're more focused on projects back home, you know, how can we help all to develop our communities? But then they are more focused on things like climate change. That
Right.
affects the United States, affects Mexico, affects
The world,
everywhere.
right.
So we have different programs that are focusing on that kind of issues. Climate change, I mean, social justice issues, economic justice, and we're getting them on board our program. So we are creating like a space that works for focus in Mexico, focus here, but also in global issues.
Global issues.
And we have been very fortunate. I mean, it has been a challenge though, I mean, to get the young people involved. But when you provide opportunities for them to feel like they are doing something that is part of what they want to do, I mean, like we have a garden. We have a garden so we can teach them about environmental issues, about the monarch butterfly, and so how can they connect to the issues back home.
Okay.
And you need to be very creative in order to get them involved. And we are fortunate to get Francisco, though.
Right. So you have that for kids, and you have, like he's mentioned, a garden. How else do you get teens and young adults involved?
Well,
Because I mean, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I wasn't thinking, I want to hang out with my parents or be where my parents are.
Well, one of the ways we do, you know, Jose Luis mentioned the garden. Sometimes we need volunteers, you know, to go clean out the garden, to go plant the seeds. And also sometimes we also have workshops where they're focused on the youth, you know, and how they can develop here in the United States, because not only, we have to teach them that not only, you know, if they were born here, that their parents are Mexican, so, and they can travel back to Mexico. So not only are they, you know, U.S. citizens, but they are Mexican citizens. So when they go back home, you know, they talk Spanish, they talk with their parents, with their grandparents, cousins, aunts, and then when they're out in school, they talk English with their friends, their teachers, their colleagues. So we want to emphasize that, you know, even though you were born here in the United States, you can't forget about your roots back in Mexico. And when you go back to Mexico, you can't forget that you're from the United States either.
Okay. So it's having a binational identity.
Right. With the purpose of fully participation in the American society, we want immigrants, we want the child or immigrants to fully participate in the American society. Very proud of who they are.
Right.
I'm talking about culture, about the language. I mean, they need to be proud of who they are, being
And where they come
bicultural.
from, right?
Yeah, being bicultural, being bilingual, and sometimes binational. So that's the purpose of Casa Michoacán, and one of the things that we always emphasize when we do all these activities. Let's say we have like almost 2 months set of activities in May and June, and we're going to start on May the 22nd with a workshop about climate change.
Right.
How that affects us living in the United States, but also those people living back home.
Okay, so I certainly want to get into more about what your travels back to Mexico, but let's talk about the Presencia Michoacana while we look at some images. You brought in some images, and that will certainly serve as a good tool to take us into what you do at Casa Michoacán, but also what you do during these 2 months of activities, La Presencia Michoacana en el Medio Oeste. Let's look at some of those pictures right now. This is Casa Michoacán, right?
Right.
Which is a beautiful facade now.
Yeah, well, we got a grant from the General Assembly to do some remodeling.
Okay, and this is what this is your board of directors, or
Some of them, and some of them are some people that help us to have binational programs like Tres por Uno. That's
and how long? Going back to the remodeling. Well, actually, let's just move on to this picture. Well, you also have classes in Casa Michoacán. Are these some of the students?
Yes.
Tell us about that,
Um,
Francisco, please.
Well, like with our primary, secondary, and high school program, we do have at the end of the Presencia, that last event, we wanna encourage them to keep studying. So we throw a graduation for them at Casa Michoacán. That's when they're holding their diploma and they're proud that they were able to accomplish this.
Okay. And these are some of the children you involved. This is in traditional wear from Michoacán.
yeah, they are Las Guarecitas. That's a ballet from the Purépecha, and that's one of the focus of Casa Michoacán. How can we keep our culture? How can we be proud of who we are?
Of our
And,
native roots, right?
Right.
And aside from also being from Michoacán, they're actually from indigenous natives that actually migrated from Michoacán all the way to Chicago.
Okay. These are more graduates, and this is a little boy.
Yeah, and one of the things that I want to emphasize is some of them, they don't speak Spanish. They speak Purépecha and they speak English. That's like trinational communities, and we need to focus because they are very vulnerable communities that we need to put more emphasis on how can we give them a chance to fully participate in the American
And this is
society.
traditional Purépecha
Correct.
clothing, right? This celebration was in where last year?
Calumet Park.
Way on the southeast side. And these individuals are members, active members of Casa Michoacán?
Yeah, and it's Ruben Chavez. He's the person in charge of economic development of the federation, because we believe that we need to empower communities also how to start a business, how can we help them to be part of the American society in a way that we can be respected as a community, as a society, as an immigrant community.
Good.
And this is a very interesting picture because you can see the guys in the right, not necessarily from Purépechas, they are from
Sweden.
Sweden. And how did they come to Casa Michoacán? I didn't know many Swedes were.
Okay, that's very interesting because Casa Michoacán is a place where we try to share who we are and we want to learn about other ethnic communities. And this was a project that we work on with Chicago Cultural Alliance. And we have the opportunity, and we promote that every year. How can we learn from other ethnic communities? And they learn about us, we learn about them.
Okay. And here, these women are speaking about what? They're doing a presentation?
They're talking about the lupus. It's one of the main problems here, and it's not a well-known problem in the United States, but one of the things is worse for Latinos because here in Illinois, there's no doctor that treats lupus that talks Spanish. We actually had to brought the national, the leading doctor of lupus, that Latina lupus, from all the way from Alabama.
Alabama.
Yeah, so here these community members were actually looking out in the community for lupus, telling people about what lupus was and, about how it's done, how it's tested. And also we actually found some people who actually had lupus, who were Latino, and, they spoke English and they spoke Spanish.
And
That's
this
a
is the
community
garden.
garden,
It's a community garden.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do you plant there during the year?
Well, we're trying to plant the milkweed so the
milkweed.
monarch butterfly can go there and actually, have a place to eat something and continue the journey to Mexico.
Yeah, when people think community garden, they think, tomatoes, planting carrots, everything. But actually with the community garden, they're all based from the prairies. This is actually native plants from Illinois. So the milkweed actually, the butterflies eat it on their way back to Michoacán.
Okay, and we'll definitely get more into that right now. But this is our a picture of a celebration, right? The closing celebration, I think, of the Presencia from last year.
Every year, and then in June, we have a big celebration. We invite the governor, in this case, the governor of Illinois. We invite the governor for the state of Michoacán. And we have a dialogue between them and us. How can we improve the living conditions of Michoacanos living in the United States, and how can we collaborate with install projects back home in Michoacán in Mexico.
Okay, great. And so, what comes from that dialogue? What issues do they touch on, or have you touched on
Well,
previously?
one of the things that we have been very successful with this administration is some memorandums of understanding. How are we going to take care of Lago de Pátzcuaro? It's a lake in Michoacán. Very
It's a cultural center, really.
Exactly.
Sure.
And between Lake Michigan, because both lakes are very important for our states. So those memorandums will help us in to educate people, to educate societies that we need to take care of environmental issues. We need to be aware of that.
Okay, and that's talking about the environment. It brings me up to the symbol of Michoacán, at least in my mind, and I am a Michoacano myself. The monarch butterfly and the sanctuaries, which have come under great stresses, right? There is, the number of butterflies have reduced, and part of what you're doing through the garden is, and through Casa Michoacán, is educating people, right?
Educating people, because believe it or not, every year the amount of monarch butterflies flying to Mexico are less and less and less.
And this, I mean, it usually there's a pattern between the years. There's sometimes it goes up, it'll go down, it'll be a steady pace. But the last 4 years, actually, instead of when it's supposed to go on a slope up, back up, it actually is going lower. And this winter was actually the lowest recorded number in history of the monarch butterfly to ever go back to Michoacán.
And what are some of the causes of this?
There's 3 main causes. One of the causes, and that one that we're actually working a lot with the U.S. Forest Reserve and also with the other specialists of the monarch butterfly, is the GMO farming, where what they do is, a lot of the milkweed grows in between the corns and the soybean plantations. But what they started doing from 10 years ago to now is that with the GMO modified corn and soybean, it's actually resistant to Roundup herbicide.
Herbicide, yeah.
So they actually kill off the milkweed, and since most of the milkweed, the butterflies eat the milkweed from the corn, from the maize, from the soybeans, there's no more milkweed on the plants.
Wow. Well, certainly that could be a topic for another show. Let's we have just a few minutes left. Let's get into the Presencia Michoacana. It's almost close to a month of activities, a little bit over a month. Tell us about some of the highlights of all these programs for youth and for the entire community.
Well, I mean, we're going to start the May 22nd with a workshop about climate change and how it's affecting the monarch butterfly.
Wow, okay.
We're going to have a reflection, we're going to present some documentaries and so on. Also, we're going to have a leadership training in June. The first
May 31st,
May 31st.
June 1st.
Okay.
We're going to have a leadership training because we believe that our members need to learn better how to do an agenda and how to run a meeting or campaigns. And also we're going to be very focused in gender. How can we in our clubs and in our organizations very openly include women and young people? Because it's a challenge. Most of organizations are men,
run by men,
and older men. So the challenge is how can we include women and young women and men.
Okay.
So we're going to focus on that. We're going to have conversations about that. Also, we're going to talk about migration. We're going to have a very whole morning talking about immigration and
immigration reform.
Immigration reform. How can we get it right?
Because everybody pushes immigration reform as if what's being proposed already is the best, right?
Right. And
but that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. How can we get it right? And there's going to be a discussion. NALAC and ICRR and actually we're going to have some participation from people in the academia from UIC, and we're going to have a real discussion. And I think it's going to be very productive. At the same time, we're going to talk about what's happening in the state of Michoacán with the autodefensas.
Right.
what's happening. I
Right.
mean,
Well, Michoacán has been one of the most severely affected states by the drug war.
yeah.
Right. And well, my own perspective is, well, I mean, there has to be an honest discussion about legalization, right?
Right.
But that's certainly my opinion. What other workshops would you have young people come to?
Yeah, well, we're gonna have a movie showing of from the Morelia Film Festival.
Okay.
It's one of the most important festivals in Mexico and also around the world, talking about immigration here at Casa Michoacán. So they wouldn't have to travel back to Mexico, and we're gonna be somebody speaking from the movie. We're not sure yet if it's the director.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's going to be Los Años de Fierro. That's,
Okay.
you know, Los Años de Fierro is somebody that was in Texas and was killed, actually. And it was like the process, all the discrimination just because being a Latino and a jail in Texas. And, you know.
Okay. So the film, and then you close it with a big celebration, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, on the day we have that's when we have a graduation for our students where they bring their family. But at night we have actually the banquet where everybody's invited.
Okay. And we are gonna award this time Maria Prado. That's a very well-known Latino leader from the state of Illinois. And also the governor of Michoacán is gonna be here, and also we're gonna sign a memorandum of understanding with the union UFCW International about how can we collaborate defending labor rights here in the United States, but also in Mexico.
Great. It sounds like you have a great assortment of programs. Thank you both for coming out to share.
Thank you, Juan Carlos.
Thanks for the invitation.
Great. And to you, our audience, thank you for joining us. Perspectivas Latinas is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Perspectivas Latinas for local issues and concerns every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.